All right, and we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break. Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows, and if you can, give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or also as well, if you can like, follow, share, subscribe, anything you do to follow us on either Spotify or your favorite podcast outlet, it is truly appreciated. But also do what you can to support the outlets that my two guests are working for and do such great work for as well. Please, if you can go ahead and support Lakerholics.com, and of course everything that Rafael does at the NBA Draft Junkies, and also as well his other great podcasts, Run the Floor. It is truly appreciated. Well, Rafael and I said last night, I think some of our closing words were, if we could have a day today like we did yesterday, we would be in NBA playoff heaven. And you know what? Day 14 of NBA playoffs was NBA playoff heaven. Now, it didn't quite work out the way Laker fans were probably hoping for. But again, you had two tremendous games coming right down to the wire. Both contested, both kind of controversial as far as their ending is concerned, with the Rockets coming out on top 104-102 to end their series 4-3 over the Oklahoma City Thunder and move on to the next round against the Los Angeles Lakers. And then you had game 2 of the Eastern Conference battle between Miami and Milwaukee, with Miami squeaking out on 2 free throws by Jimmy Butler after the clock had expired, with a 116-114 victory over Milwaukee. We're going to talk both those games, and we're also going to give Magicman here some thoughts if he wants to go ahead and preview the Lakers and the Rockets, because Rafael and I are going to preview it on Thursday. But here with me today is, first off, Sean Grice, a.k.a. Magicman, from the place known as Lakerholics.com. Be part of the conversation today at Lakerholics.com. Sean, did you get everything you could have asked for as an NBA fan?
Oh, absolutely, Gerald. Tonight was the best day of playoff basketball thus far.
Absolutely.
Looking forward, this to me is steel on steel. I think going into this matchup, it's going to be Russ and James versus AD and LeBron. And whoever comes out on top between those four, I think will win the series. I'm just going to go ahead and predict the Lakers in 6. I just think AD's just going to be too much for them on all 4 levels, scoring in transition, being able to hit his mid-level jumpers, and keeping them honest in the paint. I think he can match James Harden free throw for free throw, if that's the game that D'Antoni and Harden want to play. So I think there are a myriad of ways this series could go. I think the first 4 games are a split, and then I'll take the Lakers to win game 5 and 6.
All right. Well, you got it all mapped out there. Rafael and I are going to probably go into it tomorrow, because I haven't actually mapped it out that far yet in my brain. I just taking a deep breath right now after what went on today. But also with us is the man indeed. You know him as the man behind NBA Draft Junkies. You know, if you, like I said before, if you're in the mood to find out what's going on with the NBA draft, there is absolutely no better place to go than NBA Draft Junkies. Dozens and dozens and dozens of profiles are waiting for you to take a look at today on YouTube at the NBA Draft Junkies channel. Plus also he's got his NBA Draft Junkies podcast. Plus also as well, he's got a Run the Floor podcast. And to top it all off, like whipped cream and a cherry on a sundae, you can check out his articles that he writes on NBADraftJunkies.com. It is the man indeed, Mr. Rafael Barlowe. And Rafael, again, that grin we thought was pretty big on Adam Silver is probably hurting so much because it's getting even bigger now.
Yeah, he's probably sweating bullets. He did not want to see the Thunder in the second round of the playoffs versus the Lakers. Bad for TV.
It could have been bad for TV. Like I said, that was the better matchup, I think, personally. But Rafael, I'll start with you. And what the game we're going to cover is first, we're going to cover the Game 7 between Houston and Oklahoma City. And it did come down to, like we saw at that very controversial ending. I want to note something out to you when I'm watching ESPN or /ABC as far as their coverage usually. And when Mark Jones is on there, and I really, really like Mark Jones, especially when he's with Doris. But today, if I hear another phrase or another reference from Mark Jones referencing the clutch time that Chris Paul has, and then right away, not even as he gets it out of the sentence out of his mouth, Chris Paul manages to turn over the ball or do something bad or do something with it that's an error. I mean, Chris Paul literally had the game in his hands today. And this is what he says. This is what, well, actually, Mark Jones was saying, this is what he lives for. This is what he lives for. He doesn't shy away from it, yada, yada, yada. And it seemed like time and time again in that last 2 minutes, he didn't shy away from it, but he also didn't help his team either.
Well, Mark Jones has not watched, he must not have watched any Clippers games, because I always felt like when they came down to the last shot or whatever, Chris Paul never took it. Even today, I've been critical about Chris Paul, and I've said it before in the show. Great player, but we used to, my little group of friends would call him CP3 quarters, because I always felt like he deferred in the fourth quarter. And if you look at this game, this play sums up how I felt about him when the game was on the line. It was like 13 seconds maybe when they had the ball, and he almost turned it over. And then Gilgeous-Alexander didn't want the ball, and then he dribbled from one end of the court to the other, and they were expecting an undrafted rookie, even though he had a great game and he was knocking down shots, to take the game-winning shot for them. And then also I feel like Chris Paul was 6 of 6 from the free throw line. Why didn't he shoot the free throw?
Yep.
Go
ahead, Sean.
Confused. Yeah, I'm with Raph. I was confused. Like, why aren't you sending CP3 up there? I think he's over 93% from the line in the clutch.
Yeah, and so I've just always felt that even when he was with the Clippers, if they had a big possession late in the game, he would defer, and JJ or Jamal would end up taking the shots. And even though this year that lineup they had was clutch and they were the best lineup on the floor, it didn't seem like anybody wanted to take the last shot.
Didn't seem like it, did it? Especially except for, except for Luke and Stewart. Give him all the credit you can. Yeah, James Harden had an incredible, and I think I'm just like almost shaking my head when I say this, incredible defensive play. But give him all the credit. Dort didn't hesitate. Now, it takes him a while to get his shot off, and ultimately that was his undoing, because that made it easy for James Harden to block the shot. But you know what? He tried to take the shot that Chris Paul, Shea, or Dennis Schroeder should have taken instead.
Well, I even think he was in a situation where he had to take it.
Oh yeah, he had no choice, but he didn't. He didn't hesitate. He got the ball. He didn't try to. It takes him a while, and that split second, extra second that it takes him to wind up, that's what cost him in the long run.
And you know what, Gerald, you're absolutely right. And I think with like a summer and a whole season, that can be a correctable shooting mechanic problem to correct. This was the best version of Dort that we've seen. If he can play like this, not every game, but like every 2-3 games with Shea, that's your backcourt of the future right there.
Well, like I said before, Sean, that I give the kid all the credit in the world. His game is still unrefined. When he goes to the basket, it's still a rough watch. I mean, there's still a lot of things that he needs to work on, but I like what I see. The kid's got bravado. They're like a parking lot. They're like Rajon Rondo distance.
You know who he reminds me a lot of right now? John Starks. Now, I'm not comparing him to John, but he's capable of a brilliant performance one night, and then, you're shaking your head at his intensity the next night. So I think if he gets under control and, again, has another season under his belt, I think that that those little hitches in his game will be corrected.
Well, it is going to take a little time, but the future's looking bright for that kid, and I'm rooting for him. Just some great
Canadian
effort by
boy.
him.
He needs
But
to
can
fire
he-
his agent.
Yeah, absolutely. Because horrible. What did you say earlier about his contract, Rafael?
He needs to fire his agent. He signed a 4-year, $5.4 million deal.
Dang.
And after year 2, it's a team option for year 3 and a team option for year 4.
Gosh.
And,
I
and
just
that's
like it's the biggest bargain. I mean, I think if you did a redraft right now, he could probably go lottery.
Man, why didn't we do that with Taylor and Horton Tucker? My God.
Well, I mean, Rich Paul wasn't gonna allow him to be in such a bad deal. I mean, even most guys, when they sign a 2-way contract, you sign one, and you maybe sign a two-year deal, but you give your player an option just in case he outperforms it, that he can put himself in line for another contract. But
that's Sam Presti for you, man. He's brilliant.
well, that's also the agent not having any faith in his client. Let's put that right there for you as well.
Yeah,
but
that's what I think, yeah.
Well, again, Rafael and Magicman, I think right now I see a lot of good things from him going forward, and that speaks well for Oklahoma City going forward, because not only do they have like 3,000 draft picks over the next 10 years, they've got a lot of young assets that they can go ahead and keep or retain or trade. And Chris Paul may be one of those assets, older assets that they could trade, because he proved himself outside of those last minutes where, like Rafael and I were talking about, that he didn't get it done today. But game 6, I mean, he showed up there. Overall in the series, he played pretty good. Didn't play at the level you were hoping to see consistently over a 7-game period. But again, it might be just enough for Knicks or other team to go ahead and say, you know what, we're going to take a chance on him to get our team to the playoffs. I know Laker Tom already has Chris Paul on the Lakers, which absolutely blew my mind when I read that on Twitter. I think, just my gosh, do we want to go ahead and just plug our salary cap even more? Come on, go ahead, Tom. Go ahead. Let's just plug it up even more.
How did he think he can make that work?
That's what I still want to know. I mean, obviously,
sign Kuzma to a supermax and then sign a trade
along with Danny Green and some other pieces. But yeah, he's got that on Twitter, and I just saw that and glanced. And I'm like, Laker Tom. But anyways, I know Jamie Sweet was also wishing us well. He's watching. Just wanted to go ahead and pass along Jamie Sweet's work that he does on Lakerholics.com. He has the Lakers in 6 as well, like you do, Magicman. But again, Rafael and I are going to go on tomorrow's show and detail that more and go into more detail about that. But for tonight's game, Houston, even after a subpar game from James Harden, still got the job done. Rafael, what do you think was the key? I can't believe I'm saying this. Russell Westbrook actually made up for a lot of sins that he made in game 6 this evening.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Russ, you know that he's going to bring you maximum effort every night. You know that he's not going to stop attacking and he's not going to shy away from the moment. I felt like Harden, he has some game 7 demons. I mean, even the look in his eye, he didn't look aggressive. He was settling. I think at one point he had taken 10 shots and maybe 7 were threes. And I mean, Steven Adams did a good job of, blocking the paint. And then, Dort, we already mentioned how he did a good job of just making sure that Harden couldn't get the favorable matchups on the screens. But Harden just wasn't aggressive to me, as he normally was.
And I know you do a lot of skills training and whatnot, but when you look at Dort, the way he plays defense, the one thing I notice the most, besides him fighting over the screens like his life depended on it, is his head movements. If you see him actually, as he closes in and as he's playing Harden, as Harden's trying to go ahead and gauge whether he needs to go ahead and penetrate or shoot, you can see his head always moving. Dort's head is always moving, looking for a screen, but yet still keeping his eyes on his opponent. I rarely see that with any consistency from defensive players out there when players are on the defensive end. I think that's incredible. I think that's something that every coach should teach. because you know what? If you do, you're going to go ahead and create a lot better defensive players out of it, Rafael. I don't know about how you. To me, I just saw it and I just immediately just thought that, you know what, this kid is made for defensive mold.
Yeah, I mean, it's want to. Like, he doesn't want to be screened. But I know one play it cost him. It was a play where they did get the favorable matchup, and then instead of sticking to Covington, he went to double Harden when Steven Adams was out there. I mean,
And
Harden
Adams
was
didn't rotate over.
well. I think Adams ended up having to switch just because of the screen, and then it looks like it should have been a switch, but he ran out there when Harden had the ball on the left side, and he ran out there and he left Covington wide open and he hit a three at the top of the key. I thought on that play he made a mistake of being, I guess, kind of like his Avery Bradley, where you're caught up in the individual matchup instead of the team defense. And then so yeah, I think that was a key bucket. But overall, man, he's put himself in position to be Oklahoma City starting wing for the near future.
Absolutely. Magicman, don't forget about that mute button. Anytime you want to go ahead and do anything, man, you just go for the mute button on that. So
we'll do, man.
No worries. So again, Houston moves on to the next round against the Los Angeles Lakers. Like I said, it was the matchup we thought we'd see, but I think there's going to be, at least in the first game, a little bit of fatigue set in for Houston Rockets. So the Lakers need to capitalize on that because the Lakers are fully rested, which you and I've seen may not always be the best thing for the Lakers because they always seem to come out a little bit rusty, but I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen on Friday, and you and I are going to be previewing that coming up on Thursday's show. But for today, Houston gets the victory 104-102 over Oklahoma City. Looking forward to more action. And again, Oklahoma City's got a lot to look forward to going forward in the future. They've got assets galore, so I'm looking for Oklahoma City to make some good moves going forward. And they could be, for the next 5-10 years, one of the best teams in the NBA. Magicman, Rafael, do you guys both agree?
I do.
I don't.
Really? Go ahead. Elaborate. No, I want to hear it. I love the contradictory fashion. So tell me.
Well, they're going to have to be bad enough to get a top pick. So they may have a bunch of picks, but if they're a bunch of, 17 or 18th picks, then I don't know. Like, look at Boston. They have a bunch of picks. Like, they have 3 picks in this draft, and I don't think they're going to be able to get much for them. I mean, they benefited with Tatum and Brown, but I think Oklahoma City, unless they get rid of Chris Paul, they're going to have to bottom out. And then I think if they can bottom out and get a top 5 pick that's their own, then it helps them. But if they end up having a bunch of picks that are, like I said, in the mid-teens or whatever, I don't know if it's going to make that much of a difference.
I think they can do that. I think if CP3 goes, Steven Adams is on the block too, and they'll trade. Then they'll just start from ground zero with Dort and Shea.
Gallinari is the only free agent. Is that correct?
Yeah, and Schroeder's got a really nice deal too, so you could maybe trade him for protected number 1, or who knows what price you could get for somebody like him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think it's tough because they had such a good year this year, and
that's the thing. I sorry, Rafael, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just was gonna say I think Presti just took this year to figure out what he's going to do in the off season, because I don't think this same team comes back. There's no way. I don't see it.
Which is tough. You tell the fans, I know this team was great and we overachieved. We were a second away from making it to the second round, but this isn't in our plans for the future, so we're going to break it up. We're possibly going to lose Gallinari for nothing. And
he's the kind of guy who can make those decisions and not even blink. So they the right guy in charge, at least. Before we go on to the next series, I just want to ask you guys a question. Don't you think the Pacers tried a little gamesmanship in this series by like I've been hearing whispers that D'Antoni's already got his bag packed for Indiana. Have you guys been hearing that too?
Yeah, I read that. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering if that was a little bit of gamesmanship by the Pacers, just with the timing of firing Nate.
Well, there's always those rumors that come out the next time. As soon as you get those firings, you're going to hear the rumors literally the next hour on Woj, on Shams, on Chris Haynes, whoever. You're going to hear those
That
rumors.
one seems realistic to me, though.
Yes. Some of it's put out by agents, some of it's put out by sources, some of it's put out by just sheer rumors and people throwing names out there. But D'Antoni going to Indiana is a definite possibility, but that's not the only place. If he leaves, if let's say they get beaten by the Lakers in 6 or 5 or 4 or whatever, and D'Antoni leaves because they will be clearing house in Houston, that could be all the way up to Daryl Morey. We're still, wait to be seen. But if small ball doesn't end up going as far as small ball, they want in Houston, D'Antoni's going to be a wanted individual, and not just there. It could be New Jersey, could be all over the NBA. I know he will be a wanted individual.
I think it depends on how they compete in the second round. If they get swept, then it's going to be a bad look. If they lose in 7 and it's competitive, then I don't know if you blow it up after that. So I think the main thing is they got past this first round. If they would have lost the first round, D'Antoni might as well just flew straight to West Virginia from Florida and not even go home and pack.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the rumors to Indiana are, in my opinion, I think it's because Oladipo has some issues there. I think it's based off of his quad. When he had the injury, he kept being cleared to play. Then he ended up, I don't know if he tore his quad or whatever he did. And he really missed a whole calendar year.
Yeah.
He missed a full year. Then there were rumors that he didn't want to play in the bubble, but he was going to be fined $3 million. Well, not fined, or he just wouldn't have got paid. So it's going to cost him $3 million. And then for them to sign Nate to an extension and then 14 days later fire him, that sounds like a power move. And I could see, if I'm Oladipo, why I would want D'Antoni in a free agent year. You get D'Antoni next season and you get put in that offense in a free agent year, you're getting, I think he would have gotten the max anyway, but you put yourself in position to, to put up numbers. If he puts up 26 and 9 and 5, which he would in a D'Antoni offense, then, it's, you see what it did for Hardy, you see what it did for Steve Nash. So he got Jeremy Lin. So yeah, I would want, if I was a ball handler, I would want D'Antoni to be my coach.
For sure.
That isn't if Laker Tom has. Well, actually, Laker Tom has had Oladipo on the Lakers first. So there is no player that's safe in the NBA from Laker Tom. I tell you right now. But I want to go in before we go head on out. Obviously, head to the other game today. And I was talking about this just before you came on, Magic Man. It was Milwaukee in their second quote-unquote home game of the second round against Miami. And Miami, on 2 free throws after the game had ended, because it was on the last second shot by Jimmy Butler that he got fouled, or I should say a hand on by Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Miami Heat won 114-112 over Milwaukee. And I'll tell you right now, as I told Rafael before we went on the air, you live by the Mark Davis, you die by the Mark Davis. So it comes down to it. Was it as Rafael and I were talking about, we were pondering this. I'm going to go with you, Magic Man, first on this. Do you think the last 2 calls by referee Mark Davis, where I think it was Middleton that took the 3-point shot that got fouled, and I put that in air quotes, got fouled by a standing straight up, hand straight up, maybe moving, I don't know. To me, it's kind of iffy. But again, he was Goran Dragic was called for the foul. Middleton made all 3 free throws, and then Right after that, I said the call was there as Jimmy Butler was coming down. Giannis Antetokounmpo had a hand on his hip. Didn't affect his shot at all, but barely on the way down, put a hand on him, got the call after the game was technically already even over, and that's how they end up losing the game. But both calls were made by referee Mark Davis. So I ask you, Magic Man, the first call, Rafi and I talked about it already, but we'll go ahead and share our thoughts here on the air here in a sec. But that first call on Goran Dragic, do you think that was a foul or not?
No, I don't think that was a foul at all by the rule.
Okay, you can stay on the program. Just wanted to make sure. But and then the second call, do you think that was a makeup call by Mark Davis?
Yeah, of course that was a makeup call. And
okay, you can stay on the show. Okay.
And that was such a ticky-tack thing too. I mean, I didn't like either call personally, but it is what it is, Gerald. You called it the way I saw it. Dragic, I didn't see a foul there, and I definitely didn't see a foul on Butler and Giannis going one-on-one. It was disappointing.
It was disappointing as far as watching it, but Rafael, when you see the next game and the way the referees called that, with bodies literally in that last 2 minutes flying all over the place at times and nothing being called, and then you go back to this game where, again, we come down to maybe his armpit hairs, maybe fouling, Goran Dragic fouling Middleton, and then you have on the end literally a hand that in no way deterred the shot. What does that show you as far as the way the inconsistent refereeing is? I mean, to me, it's kind of disappointing. But when I doubt anything, I go with Doris Burke, and whatever Doris Burke says to me is gold.
Well, it's the human element. I remember once reffing like my brother's 9th grade fall basketball league, and I remember making a call, and then I thought about it. I was like, "Ooh, probably that wasn't a foul. It was just my human reaction." But then if I go back on it, I look like I'm indecisive. So I knew I was wrong, and I did what the referee did today. Next play down, call a foul, even it out. And so I remember another referee made a statement to me and stuck with me. I mean, I think about it all the time. And he says, "Yeah, you blew that call." I said, "Man, I know." He says, "Are they making every shot?" I said, "No." He says, "We're not going to make every call."
Fair enough.
And I thought about it in that moment. He probably blew the whistle thinking it was a foul, and then probably just reacted. And he knows if he says, "You know what? Sorry, that wasn't a foul," inadvertent whistle, then he looks indecisive.
And we see there's no crowd affecting these guys' decision making. This is critical thinking in the moment with each other or by yourself. You're not affected by crowd noise. You're not affected by the.
I think you're affected by the benches and the players because you can really hear them.
Yeah, for sure. That's affecting you. Definitely.
It was one game.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it was one game I remember. It was right by the bench, and the ref didn't make the call at first, but you can tell he was totally influenced by the bench. I think even it happened today. I think Westbrook had the double dribble on the baseline where he went up, he lost it, and they were going to keep playing, but the reaction of everybody on the Thunder bench jumping up and down, and it probably was a second or two, maybe even 3 seconds went by when he decided to call double dribble or whatever he called travel. So.
And then there was also a call later on, I think very close to the end, where they made a call, the refs made a call, and they were about ready to go on it. But D'Antoni, I think, made such a stink that they took a second look at it and eventually got the call overturned. So
that was
the Eric Gordon one.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was close to the end.
Charge on Gallinari.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's and so I'm just telling you right now, like it becomes more and more evident that in this type of game with no crowd, that these benches are becoming more and more part of what's going on. I think we should all just go like this for the entire game. Just have every call taken a look at, because this is every time every player has any type of thing. We're seeing this all the time. Can we just stop doing this, please? I mean, it just seems like you only get one call a game. You only get the chance to go ahead and overturn one call each games. But again, I've seen every NBA player do that on almost every possession. It's kind of irritating. But I will say that, when it's called for, these guys, referees, like you said, Rafael, they're human. They make decisions. Sometimes it's not always the right one, but they do have time now to go ahead and take a closer look at these things in a fashion that's a lot less distracting as far as without the crowd than what's normally taking place.
See, if I'm the Bucks right now, I'm a little bit more discouraged being down 2-0 than I would be if I'm the Raps.
Okay. So I'll pose that question out to you, Rafael. Thanks, Sean, for that. Would you be more apt to? I think both teams right now are on the hot seat right now when you're down 2-0.
Yeah, there's I don't think there's any consolation point. So we're down 2-0, but it's a competitive 2-0. I mean, both are the higher seeds.
First time I guess since the playoffs started.
I think I heard 84 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I looked up this stat. It's really interesting. So for teams down 0-2, in the 320 series that a team has been down 0-2, 293 have been won by the team up 2-0. Only less than 6.5% of teams come back from 0-2 and win the series. Now, it's been done before in the past few years. Cleveland did it twice. LeBron did it against the Celtics and the Warriors in the finals. I believe the Trailblazers did it in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. And one other team I'm missing.
Didn't it happen last year?
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Milwaukee was up 2-0 last year.
Milwaukee was, yes, the Raps. Thanks, man. Thanks. Yep, that was the one.
Well, the game today was Miami winning on those 2 free throws made by Jimmy Butler after time expired. It was 116-114. I want to make a correction on that. I want to ask you this, Sean. When it comes to what you saw in the game, you got a good game from Giannis Antetokounmpo. Made 9 of his 13 free throws, made 10 of 18 shots, very efficient, 14 rebounds. Couldn't ask for much more. I mean, you could ask for a big, even a larger game from him. Middleton chipped in with 23, but where did it go wrong for them? Because they seem to be playing on their heels most of the game.
Yeah, I you know what, Gerald? This seemed to be just it reminds me of like a 70s R&B band. It's just Jimmy Butler and the Committee. It's just Jimmy shows up usually, and Goran's there, and then you have like 3 or 4 guys that are just filling the stat sheet. I mean, look at the 5 guys who played over 30 minutes tonight. You have at least 3 rebounds, over 4 assists, 12.5 points. They've just got players up and down the floor, and I really don't think Milwaukee has the kind of yes, they can match them depth wise, but Miami has specialized players who do certain things. Like the way Spo coaches the Heat, it's the Pat Riley way. And the Pat Riley way is the same way all the time usually. You have to play defense, you have to rebound, and you have to be 100% effort, 94-50. You give me those 3 things, I can work within the boundaries of what your weaknesses are.
And even a player coming off their bench later in the game, like Derrick Jones Jr. from UNLV, he came in, gave them a big lift defensively. And that's something we saw trending tonight, Rafael, is the fact that defense was paramount in this game. Butler, last game I was telling you at length about why Giannis Antetokounmpo was not playing Butler. Well, today he didn't have a huge game. Wes Matthews did a great job on him. But again, if you have a hot player on Miami, like Goran Dragic was today for the Heat, why do you not have Giannis Antetokounmpo on that player?
Well, I think what makes Miami difficult in that sense is that they don't have one guy that they rely on. So they proved today, and I guess it's similar to what Sean said. He feels like the Raptors are in a better situation, been down 2-0. Because if you look at the stats, you can't say, all right, Butler killed us again by scoring 30. They got a balanced attack. Giannis played a whole lot better, and the free throws weren't the issue this game. And Miami just ended up having a balanced attack where I forgot how many guys had double figures, but it was quite a few guys had double figures, and I don't even know if anybody scored 20. Or maybe Dragic.
Dragic 23, I think he had.
Yeah, so I mean, if you take him off, I think whoever, like if you put Giannis on Dragic, then Butler could get loose. Or if he's getting to the basket and they're getting hockey assists.
Yeah. You're right. And as far as that balls keep going around, Rafael, you still there with me?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, you guys disappeared for a second.
What really should be concerning for the Bucks is that Hero played pretty well tonight, but neither him and Robinson have really caught fire yet in a game, and that's going to happen at least once in this series. So they're already up 2-0. This is really desperation time for the Bucks.
And what I think Bud has to do is he can't rely on regular season minutes. Giannis played 35 minutes and 38 seconds. Middleton played 33 minutes. Why are you playing those guys less than 40-something minutes?
Yeah, I mean, your superstars got to be 40, 40, 40, right? You got to be able to give them at least 40 points in a game, play 40 minutes, and you have the same attitude whether we're up 40 or down 40.
I agree. I guess it's always unfair to compare anybody to LeBron or Kobe, but they would not have played 35 minutes. Phil was going to play you 42, and it felt like Phil's philosophy is we're the Lakers, we're on TV, we have enough TV timeouts and breaks to where you can get your rest there.
Or LeBron's just going to get
I was going to say, even a guy like Tony Parker, I remember like him arguing with Pop. You know, I'm 29 years old, Pop. I could play the whole fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Or LeBron will just, if LeBron's sitting on the bench and he sees something he doesn't like, he's going to get up anyways. And he's going to check himself into the game, whether the coach wants it or not. That's how much cachet he has. And with him or Anthony Davis, you got to go ahead and play them the majority of the minutes. With your stars who are affecting the game, like Giannis Antetokounmpo and even Chris Middleton, you've got to go ahead and play them the majority of the game. But again, it comes down to is on the defensive end. I just see their defensive schemes not up to par with what I'm seeing from Miami. Miami, I'm seeing hands fly all over the place. I'm seeing knockdown balls. I'm seeing knockdown passes. I'm seeing steals. I'm seeing those type of forced turnovers that I'm not seeing as much of on the Milwaukee end. And I really think that it, to me, is the difference right now in this series is that I see a little bit better intensity on as far as the team defense is concerned. Do you agree, Magicman?
100%, Gerald. I couldn't agree more. It almost reminds me of the Bucks are a team that really relies on, like timing. Like they're a rhythm and timing team. So if you can interrupt passing lanes or you disrupt, a curl route by Middleton or maybe a back cut, it just screws them up somehow. Like you can get them off kilter and then all of a sudden Brook Lopez has happy feet in the post or, Giannis runs into the paint and there's Crowder or Duncan Robinson winning for him. So I've spoken throw a lot of different matchups at them. And like I said, I don't think Bud, like Rafael said, Bud's got to react like in the game. Like he can't wait till halftime or when he's watching, the loss tomorrow to make these changes. They have to come right away.
Rafael, go ahead, Rafael.
I think when the game first started, he went with his normal substitution pattern. I think Giannis comes out in the first 5 minutes, and it's like it seems so scripted. But I think the reason why Miami's defense is looking a lot better, even though they only won today's game by 2 points, is because we all know Milwaukee's offense is based off of one guy. You know that Milwaukee in the half court, do they really have a lot of plays or players that you're worried about doing anything if Giannis is not creating the shot for them? Because in the Milwaukee's most dangerous when you miss. If you miss a shot, then you got to sprint back because Giannis puts so much pressure on the defense. But if you can get Milwaukee to play in a half court game, then they struggle because Giannis isn't necessarily going to beat you off the dribble because you already know straight line drive, you cut it off, he's going to spin, have a guy there, and it's going to be a charge. Bledsoe has the speed to get into the paint, but they don't really have like a really good shot creator outside of Middleton. You know, if the Lakers get in the jam, late shot clock situation, you got Bron that can beat you on 3 levels. 4, if you know, whether it's the pass, the mid range, the 3, getting to the rack, shooting free throws. You look at, I mean, Houston is supposed to have 2 guys that can do that, but with Milwaukee, you know, if Giannis has the ball, it's a hard drive, spin, and if you're waiting on the spin and you're not, and then you're not leaving a shooter, then they're in trouble.
Yeah, and Rafael hit the nail on the head. And like a Miami defense, they won't let something like that happen. You close out the shooters, you close out their airspace.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the number one rule of a Spo Pat Riley defense.
Well, it's going to be very interesting to check out indeed when Game 3 happens. That's going to be coming up here in a couple days. So I'm looking forward to seeing that game, plus also the game with the Lakers now know who they're playing against. It will be Houston Rockets. So it will be tall ball against small ball, or who in this chess match will go ahead and make the maneuvers first, whether they want to go big or whether they want to go small. We'll have to wait and see how that matches up. Rafael and I are going to be sharing our thoughts on that tomorrow. Magicman, while you're here, you want to go ahead and share any last thoughts before we head on out?
Definitely, Gerald. I just wanted to say that Nuggets Jazz series really reminded me of you know, the old Sonics and Jazz in the 90s. You know, those old battles between Karl Malone and Sean Kemp. That one series, like every possession seemed to go down to the wire, and then Game 7, Sean gets to the free throw line, makes his 2. Then Karl goes down, misses his 2. It ended differently, but it was still chaos in the end. And who knows what's going to happen with Utah? They got to make some changes here.
You got some stuff coming up for Lakerholics.com?
Definitely looking at the series preview between the Nuggets and the Clippers. Right now, it just seems that the Clippers just have way too much on the perimeter for Denver right now. So I think the Clippers win in 5.
Rafael, any last thoughts on what you're working on with NBA Draft Junkies, or your thoughts on any of the playoff series before we head on out?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this second round. I'm looking forward to see what Milwaukee does. I mean, they could be down 3-0. And, you know, once you're down 3-0, the chances are slim to none. Well, I guess 0. Like everybody's ever came back.
No, good need a lot of smelling salts and shovels.
Yeah. And tonight, like, I'm glad Houston won. I wanted to see the Rockets versus the Lakers, but I thought about it. If the Rockets would have lost tonight, that means the last 3 MVPs would have just been getting slaughtered on social media. Because I don't know if you saw all the Giannis jokes. I mean, social media is brutal. I mean, they named. I saw them calling him a Greek Stromae Swift.
Oh, come on, man!
I saw.
Like Stromae didn't even practice. This is like people are getting ridiculous here.
Yeah, I saw Clee Anthony early with an accent. I just saw a bunch of hilarious. I mean, just off the wall comparisons. And I know it would have been 1,000 times worse if the Rockets would have lost tonight. It would have been bad. So, I mean, I'm enjoying the playoffs because the games have been good, but social media makes it even fun because you're watching it with a bunch of strangers that you don't know, and everybody has their own opinions. So that's what makes it fun, and how social media is kind of bringing everybody together and you're watching it with like millions of people at the same time that you can actually kind of interact with or read what they're saying. So I'm enjoying that part. As far as NBA Draft Junkies, I just released a video today, actually 2 videos, a strength and a weakness video for Devin Vassell from Florida State. He's a player that I think has a pretty high upside, but he has a floor of being a pretty good 3-and-D guy. And then the next video that I release should be coming out within the next couple of days will be Grant Riller, one of my favorite prospects, even though he's a senior. He's a little older than what teams like because he's 23, but he's the guy that's fun to watch. I mean, he's probably one of my favorite players to watch as far as just offensive repertoire and getting buckets. So but that's pretty much it. Just updating the site and creating content.
With Devin Vassell, I love your comment on Twitter that said about talking about his free throws or lack thereof that he shot in college.
Yeah, 1.5 a game for his career.
Wow.
2 years.
Okay. Avoiding that like the plague, but that could speak of other things as well. But
yeah,
again,
for 80 pounds,
yeah,
you might not want to be down there.
Yes. And for all those great detailed analysis, you want to check out NBADraftJunkies.com, NBA Draft Junkies on YouTube. Also, as well, his Run the Floor podcast and NBA Draft Junkies. Don't forget to check out those as well, everywhere you get your podcasts. With Sean Grice, he's AKA Magicman, so look for his articles today at Lakerholics.com. And before we head on out, I know we didn't pay our respects to one of the greatest college basketball coaches of all time who passed away this week, John Thompson. Wanted to go ahead and pay him his respects. Definitely one of the definitive voices in all of college basketball. I mean, from a kid, I saw him and just thought he was just remarkable as a coach. Had those great teams, all those, talk about tall ball when he had like 7-footers and 6'10" players, all just right around Patrick Ewing in the heyday of the Hoyas. And I don't know if guys, you wanted to share any John Thompson thoughts, but he truly, to me, is one of the best college basketball coaches ever and one of the greatest basketball minds to ever grace the community. So, Rafael, Sean, any last thoughts on John Thompson before we head on out?
Yeah, he was a guy that I grew to appreciate more as I got older. When I was younger, I mean, I remember when the Big East was the Big East, and you had the St. John's, the Syracuse, and all of those teams. And then, I just remember he was like the coach of the big men. I was a little too young for Ewing, but I remember Mourning and Mutombo. And then, I was a big Iverson fan, so I can probably name that starting 5 from those Iverson teams. And just a legendary guy in DC. And I, for me, at one point, I did not know that Georgetown wasn't a black college until I was an adult. Because when you thought of Georgetown, you just thought of John Thompson.
Yeah.
And I just thought of John Thompson. I thought it was a HBCU for the longest. And then as an adult, I realized it wasn't. And I went out to DC and realized, like, oh, this is a very, very prestigious school that is not near the White House, back when, the White House, before the area became gentrified. But no, it's just a tough loss for the basketball community. And it's like, within a week after Lute Olson. Yeah. So like 2 legendary coaches from my childhood. And Allen Iverson has never been shy about his emotions and crying and breaking down. I imagine he's having a really, really, really tough time dealing with this, simply because John Thompson changed his life. I mean, he had a huge impact in just turning things around for Iverson and gave him an opportunity when it looked like the door was closed for him. So I imagine he's having a very tough time dealing with this. And so, my prayers are out to the Thompson family and, all his former players. I know he was a father figure to a lot of those guys, and losing a father, whether it's your natural father or a father figure, can be tough.
Absolutely indeed. All the prayers from all of us at Lakers Fast Break, Lakerholics.com, and of course, Rafael and NBA Draft Junkies. Before we end on out, please go ahead and check us out on social media at Lakers Fast Break. Also, as well, you can reach Laker Tom for anything Lakerholics.com related, and for Sean Grice and AKA Magicman there. But of course, Rafael Barlowe is at Barlowe500 and at NBA Draft Junkies. If you have a question you want to old-fashioned, email us, LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com. And please register to vote. Just do what you can to help fight systemic racism. Your vote is needed. Please register today if you're not already. We really could use your help in going ahead and making those decisions to help us create a better world going forward. All right, everyone. It's been great. I'll tell you what, again, Adam Silver, the happiest man in Orlando right now, continuously. That smile is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we'll see what happens tomorrow if that smile can get even bigger after tomorrow's games. We're going to go ahead and check out on the schedule. It is going to be the Clippers starting their series against Denver, and also Toronto and Boston game 3. So the pressure's on Toronto, and the actual series starts between Denver and the Clippers. So who will win? We will find out tomorrow, and we're going to report it all to you. Plus, Rafael and I will go ahead and preview everything that's going to go on in the coming series between Houston and the Los Angeles Lakers. That's coming up for you tomorrow right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.